Hey, what's up guys? So today we're going to be talking about The Amazing Spider-Man number 20. I will be outright talking about the comic book itself, so spoiler warning, if you haven't read the story and you want to know what happens before you hear me talk about it, then probably do so right now. Otherwise, if you just want to follow along the story through my video, then you're welcome to do so as well. Otherwise, without further ado, let's begin. So the story begins with some Spider-Man narration. He's thinking to himself, "Dear Teen Vogue, do I remind her that I promised a hot weekend after things blow up?" And of course, there's a panel of just an explosion in the background. Spider-Man's leaping away with Kareem, Black Cat, and White Rabbit are just jumping out on their own. And Spider-Man's continuing his thought process by saying, "I think I'm gonna keep that bon mot to myself and focus on not dying in the stupidest way possible." White Rabbit contributes by saying, "In my defense, all side hustles face challenges," and Black Cat responds with, "Spoken like a true self-deluding entrepreneur." And then we cut over to the villains that are chasing after them, the Sinister tech guys from the previous issue. One of them screaming, "For Michael!" Another's going, "For justice!" The Doc Ock one saying, "For the feats!" And I'm pretty sure the Goblin one says, "Focus, Elvis." And another one's actually more focused on the goal on taking them down and says, "Just get them or we all go down." We come back to the Spider Gang that's trying to escape, and White Rabbit says, "So we're offing these entitled rich kids, right?" And Black Cat says, "Not my preference." And of course Spider-Man says, "Hard no to offing anyone." And then of course White Rabbit's like, "Pfft, excuse me for trying to get this over with quick. I'm still in mourning," referencing something from the previous story if you know what's up. And then Spider-Man says, I hate her so much." Black Cat's holding on to White Rabbit mid-escape. White Rabbit starts asking Black Cat, "You believe that I didn't do the murdering, right? At least not of that guy," referencing to Michael from the previous issue. And Black Cat responds, "Of course. Why kill the golden goose when it's still laying eggs?" And White Rabbit goes, "You get me." Also, as noted, good kisser when he still had lips. And we move over to the interaction with Spider-Man and Kareem. And Kareem brings up, "Dude, I'm sorry, but I think I peed a little." And then Spider-Man brings up a little world building here by saying, "Happens all the time, Kareem. Tony Stark sports adult diapers under the iron ones. Our secret." So it is confirmed. Iron Man wears diapers. Of course, this is still a chase sequence. So we revert back to the villains that are chasing after them. And one of them says, "What's our plan? This isn't a game anymore." And then the misogynistic Doc Ock goes, "Men, take the men. Girls, take the girls." And of course, one of them responds with, "I hate him. I hate him so much." A little reference to the similar thing Spider-Man just said as well. Here we have Black Cat and White Rabbit. One of them saying, "Focus on disabling the gear." But White Rabbit continues by saying, "Come on, ladies, this is just the sort of fan service the patriarchy wants. So give up because of feminism and stuff, right?" White Rabbit is such a clown. I like her character. She is so demented. Of course, as White Rabbit and Black Cat are on top of a tree strategizing, one of the villains slashes the tree that they're standing on and they both fall. And Black Cat tells White Rabbit, "You have a miraculous talent for saying exactly the worst thing." As they're falling, Black Cat starts being chased by the Vulture tech bro. And you see them saying, "Intercepting," as if they're about to catch Black Cat or something, or attack her as she's falling. Something like that. And I really like this part about Black Cat. So as this Vulture tech bro starts getting closer to her, she does like a somersault mid-air, and at the same time says to herself, "Amateur meet professional." And of course, the Vulture tech bro is like super confused. And during mid-somersault, this is when Black Cat attacks. White Rabbit starts fighting one of the tech bros, and she's the female equivalent of the Lizard. Mid-fight, White Rabbit says, "So I'm clear. Jealous I got with your CEO, or just self-preservation?" And the Lizard tech girl responds with, "You've destroyed our company." Finally, White Rabbit does lash out and attack the Lizard tech girl. Work-life balance, kid. Try it. After the ladies White Rabbit and Black Cat handle their own, they regroup together, and White Rabbit asks Black Cat, "Meanwhile, you and Spidey?" Black Cat says, "Not up for discussion." White Rabbit says, "I know, not my beeswax, but you could do way better." And we cut over to how Spider-Man and Kareem are handling the fight. Looks like Spider-Man left Kareem on top of a tree while he handles the business. Spider-Man at this point, he's fighting the Doc Ock tech bro. As Kareem's on top of the tree, he says to himself, "I'm gonna die." And then Spider-Man responds, "At the hands of this guy? With me here? I'd be offended if we didn't just bond over the tinkle thing." Kareem says, Here, New York, at work, the deli, my life is indestructible. Gangsters and psychos with killer umbrellas. Death is inevitable. Spider-Man's trying to listen to Kareem's midlife crisis, but the villains are distracting him too much. In mid-attack, Spider-Man goes, "Hold that existential crisis." And then he whips one of the villains that's just flying around and dumps him in the snow, and continues his conversation with Kareem, and says, "Have you considered just walking away?" And of course Kareem responds with, "You know the game. When you're in, you're in. And the only way out is through a body bag." And the tech bro goblin guy starts getting annoyed because, of course, Spider-Man and Kareem are having a bonding moment mid-fight, and they're just being ignored. But the annoyed goblin tech bro says, "Why are you fucking talking like we're not even here?" And Spider-Man says, "Hush. Kareem is having a moment." Kareem continues talking and says, "Wouldn't be so bad if I had powers too, or a real partner." Spider-Man then quickly makes history of the Green Goblin tech bro and just hangs right next to Kareem and continues the conversation. Spider-Man says, "My common sense tells me you're talking about White Rabbit. Have you ever tried talking to White Rabbit?" Kareem is silent for a moment and then he says, "So, you and Black Cat," trying to change the subject. And Spider-Man's like, "Keep it on the eye, Kareem." We cut back to Black Cat and White Rabbit, who are still trying to fend for their own. Mid-attack, Black Cat says, "Another hit to the vulture's wings and she'll be off the table." White Rabbit's right next to her saying, "You're too hot to settle. I'm sort of an expert in what rich old guys like just before they die of causes au naturel. It's you all over." Right as she finishes the sentence, one of the tech bros ends up sending some projectiles at them, which they narrowly avoided, but Black Cat continues by saying, "How many husbands did you bury?" asking White Rabbit, and she responds with, "5 before they caught me. 2 I actually liked." Black Cat continues, "I think I'll survive without your sage dating advice." White Rabbit says, "Assuming your sticky man is holding his own, it's just about the time for these morons to try," and she gets cut off mid-sentence. And off frame, we hear someone yell, "Regroup!" Of course, it's the tech bros. And the misogynistic Doc Ock bro says, "We're getting slaughtered, bros and girls." The lizard girl says, "Call me a girl again, bro." Another one says, "Protect your tech at all cost. Distance attacks only. Switch up." And one of the tech bros in the background who's actually like decently injured is like, "I think I'm concussed, guys." One of them starts being disregarding of him and says, "Man up, Sam. I am not letting my parents see me fail again." We cut back to the girls, Black Cat and White Rabbit. White Rabbit is saying, "Baby supervillains are so adorable. Better to smother them in the crib before they grow up." Damn, she's hardcore as fuck, dog. And then Black Cat questions, "Who hurt you?" So White Rabbit responds with, "Pretty much everyone." Kinda tells you a little bit about her character. Dang, she's hardcore. We move back to Spider-Man and Kareem, who has just brought him down from the tree. Spider-Man says, "You good for a few while we shut down the Sinister Six?" Kareem says, "Sure, why not? I mean, unless someone needs trash taken out or a getaway truck driven, what good am I?" And then out of nowhere, Spider-Man's sense goes off. "Not the time to cross wires, Spider-Sense. Sorry, false alarm." And I guess Spider-Man just ignores his Spider-Sense right here? I don't know, dog. Spider-Sense never has failed him in the past before, so if I were him, I'd be a little bit more worried over why that's going off. But he just ignores it, but us as readers, we kinda start picking up what's going on here. But of course, as Spider-Man, he just ignores it. And then he swings away to deal with the Sinister tech bros. And as he's swinging away, he's trying to talk to Kareem and says, "Repeat after me. I'm not just a thug. I am a man with feelings and I deserve to be loved." Honestly, fellas, nothing hits better than the relationship between Spider-Man and Kareem. Such growth over all these issues. These guys are basically homies, even though they're both playing against opposite sides. Well, kind of. I mean, they sort of teamed up in these past 2 issues. But y'all know what I mean. We move over to Black Cat, who's fending her own against the misogynistic Doc Ock tech bro. And as she's fighting, the tech bro says, "Come on, team. Are we gonna let some chicks in cosplay derail our Web 3 domination?" And after hearing this, Black Cat just sighs. And she continues by saying, "Men like you remind me to be grateful. That there are men like you for me to humiliate." Somehow maneuvers around him and shoves his face in the snow. White Rabbit sees this as she's fighting another guy, and she says, "Extra points for style, kitten. We should do this again sometime. But against like an actual threat. White Rabbit's really holding onto one of these tech bros by the throat and just choking him out. Spider-Man takes down the tech goblin bro and says, collectively, you must have enough situational awareness to realize that this only goes one way. Power down before someone gets hurt. As Spider-Man knocks out the Green Goblin tech bro, the tech bro decides to unleash a few bombs on him. Spider-Man says, case in point. Spider-Man takes this opportunity with the goblin bombs and whips them to use them against the other tech bros. And he says, collateral damage is terrible for the team morale. And then I found this next part super hilarious because, as I mentioned before, White Rabbit is just holding this guy in a chokehold. So Spider-Man has to get involved and stop her. And then Spider-Man says, and we're not leaving anyone with brain damage, thank you. And as White Rabbit's getting pulled off, she's sort of having a little tantrum and she's yelling, don't yuck my yum! While the villain tech bro is just gasping for air. And then while Spider-Man's holding onto White Rabbit, his spider sense goes off again. And he yells, look out! And jumps out of the way with White Rabbit. White Rabbit then misunderstands the scenario and says, oh, Spider-Man, and starts hugging and getting all cuddly with him. And then Spider-Man has to say, sorry, I thought someone... Can I get up now? White Rabbit continues cuddling him and says, after I help you out, I have a theory that jealousy is a hell of an aphrodisiac. Make out with me for science. Of course, having Black Cat standing over them like this. Spider-Man's quickly trying to push her away and says, please let go. White Rabbit says, skinny guys don't usually do it for me, but your boy's all muscle. Telling Black Cat. White Rabbit continues and says, I still think you can do better. Black Cat says, I'm aware. Seeing White Rabbit get all cuddly with Spider-Man as Spider-Man's trying to push her away. As Spider-Man finally gets set free from White Rabbit's clutches, he says, wait, you're aware that she thinks you can do better? Or you're aware that you can do better? Black Cat responds with, just simply, yes. And continues, why did you dodge a bullet that wasn't even there? A tingle from White Rabbit pressing against you? Spider-Man has to facepalm in this scenario, and he says, you're killing me. Black Cat continues, I find the joy where I can. Run with your tingle. After finally defeating the tech bros, Spider-Man yells at all of them and says, huddle up, synergists. Quick, check in. Obviously, you all suck at being supervillains, surprising no one but Elvis. And then the Doc Ock one has to say, don't be mean, dude. Spider-Man ignores him and continues, but lucky you, my associates and I have had a plan for you all along. Welcome to Extreme Hostile Takeover, the show where you sign over your shares to us so no one is charged with a felony. White Rabbit starts feeling attraction for Spider-Man as he's confronting the villains right now. And she says, okay, now he's attractive. But he's full of it, right? Black Cat responds with, shh, enjoy the show. White Rabbit notices Kareem walking up to them from behind her and says, nice of you to join the rest of the class. You smell like pee. Kareem's just frustrated and doesn't say anything. Spider-Man continues talking to the Sinister tech bros and says, you trafficked an illegal and highly dangerous weapons, resulting in the death of your beloved CEO. The Vulture villain points at White Rabbit and says, that was her! And this is where Spider-Man starts abusing his power as an Avenger and says, says you? I'm a freaking Avenger! No one goes to jail if I tell the authorities the real Doc Ock killed Michael. Offer the low price of 25% of the company. One of the tech bros says, hold on, we each own 20%. Another one says, you are literally counting on your fingers. Good lord. Oh man, these villains are such a bad bunch. Like, bad. But inevitably, they all do agree to Spider-Man's terms. Spider-Man continues by saying, we'll keep it simple. Do you Venmo? And at this very moment, his spider sense goes off for a third time in this story. And this is where Spider-Man finally has a chance to deal with what's causing that issue. And it turns out, it's Michael, the Mysterio character from the previous issue that died. He's not dead, but he is surprise attacking Spider-Man at the very moment. Of course, Spider-Man's too quick for him. Counters his attack and says, peekaboo, Mikey. White Rabbit sees this and she goes, ha! I knew I didn't kill anyone this weekend. Black Cat starts questioning her. You weren't sure? White Rabbit says, sometimes my reality isn't actual reality, you know? For some reason a ton of snow just falls on all of the tech bros and White Rabbit. And Black Cat responds with, I do. I honestly don't know where all this snow came from. It just fell. Spider-Man holds the Mysterio character, Michael, and asks him, what would you like to say to the class? And Michael says, well, hello everyone. I'm alive, obviously. The holographic technology in this suit is truly a marvel. Spider-Man questions, world's worst confession? Michael continues by saying, right, I'm alive, but I am not well. I faked my death as a loyalty test. If we're going to start a company, I want partners I can trust. And you passed. One of the company partners questions, how? And Michael continues by saying, despite my apparent murder and the presence of an Avenger, you were willing to protect my company. Though I would have liked to have seen a bit of negotiating on the blackmail side of things. Spider-Man's covering his nose and says to Black Cat, wow, I'm gonna stand where I don't need a shovel. White Rabbit's so ready to hit Michael, as Michael's saying, no, this is good. I will compensate all of the heroes for their time. There's fresh sushi flying in right now. He gets cut off by White Rabbit, who just attacks him, and he's on the ground holding his stomach in pain as she's walking away. And White Rabbit says, toy with my heart, risk losing your parts. Remember that, Webs, telling Spider-Man. And Spider-Man's like, me? I didn't toy with any heart. And Black Cat is getting high-fived by White Rabbit, and she says, you heard her, Webs. So what ends up happening with the Tech Bros is Spider-Man just webs them up in a garage, calls some state troopers to go deal with them. As they close the garage door, Black Cat and Spider-Man start walking towards White Rabbit and Kareem, who just have an open truck sitting there and all of the villain gear just sitting outside of it. White Rabbit's yelling at Kareem, stupid geniuses, how can I rent out busted tech? Kareem, do something useful and load this crap up. Kareem says, and gets cut off, and Spider-Man says, yeah, no, not happening. White Rabbit says, sorry, kitty, I know we bonded. Black Cat says, we did not, but White Rabbit continues, and Spidey's gonna be haunted by my musk for the rest of his days. Spider-Man, of course, responds with, I will not. White Rabbit continues, but this plan is gonna pay off big time, so we're leaving with the goods. Kareem feels the need to interrupt her and says, Rabbit, but White Rabbit's misunderstanding the scenario here, and she's telling Kareem, actually, yeah, you point the shocker thing at them and load the van. Wait, can you do both? Kareem finally tells her, I don't want to do either. White Rabbit says, boo frickin' who, Kareem? Bullet catchers don't get to have wants. Kareem responds with, I'm your partner. White Rabbit says, you're a walking delusion of grandeur is what you are. Kareem holds her by the shoulders and says, Tombstone stuck me with you as like a promotion, but the 24/7 White Rabbit show is driving me crazy. You may not care if you live or die, but I got kids, he's yelling at her, and she questions, you've got kids? Kareem's like, I showed you a video, and White Rabbit responds with, I thought that just came with the phone. Kareem charges up the shocker weapons and just blasts it towards the pile of villain gear that's just laying there. Spider-Man and Black Cat see this, and Black Cat says, didn't see that coming. Spider-Man says, Spider sense, as he's tapping to his head. Also, guy sense. Kareem says, wow, as he's staring at the explosion. White Rabbit says, that's a word. I'm paying attention. Also plotting your slow, painful demise, telling Kareem. Spider-Man feels the need to walk up to Kareem and grab his shocker gear that he used for the explosion on the gear and says, gonna hold these while you finish. 'Kay, bud? Kareem says, yes, please. Kareem looks at White Rabbit in the face and says, I live every day in fear that your next crazy idea is gonna leave me dead. It's gotta change. I need to know you have my back, or I have to ask Tombstone for a new gig. White Rabbit looks at him and says, Tombstone isn't a manager at a Starbucks. He's gonna flip. Kareem acknowledges and says, I know. White Rabbit starts thinking out loud and says, wow, that's like heavy. This feels like feelings. I don't like it. She puts her arm around Kareem and starts walking towards the truck, and White Rabbit says, "Let's pretend like I care about what you think. How do you propose we untangle this knot you created?" And Kareem follows it up with, "I have a few ideas if you're serious." As they're walking away, White Rabbit continues, "Like a rich husband's heart attack that I may or may not have caused. Blue sky me, baby." Spider-Man sees them walking away and is just questioning, criminals? We're not done here. But Black Cat holds onto his face and starts talking to Spider-Man and says, "The Sinister tech is destroyed and the psychopathic rich kids are going to jail. Isn't that a win?" Spider-Man says, 2 out of 3. Black Cat continues and says, "Exactly. And the trifecta is not webbing Rabbit and Kareem just so they can escape." Black Cat continues and says, "Were you going to tell me something before the corporate hijinks began?" And this is where Spider-Man finally unleashes his feelings on Black Cat. And he says, "I feel like what you want me to say is the exact opposite of what I should say." Black Cat says, "Only one way to find out." Spider-Man's left silent for a moment and he's thinking and says, "Mary Jane has been a part of my life for a long time. More than a part. But she's more of a sister." Black Cat feels the need to interrupt him and says, "Nope." Spider-Man says, "A best friend." Black Cat says, "Better. But," Spider-Man continues by saying, "I love her. I always have. And part of me always will. But I think that love has changed. You know? Like capital L to lowercase. Or the other way around. Whichever makes sense." Black Cat is finally happy that Peter Parker finally confessed his feelings about MJ. Black Cat questions, "Was that so hard?" Peter says, "The hardest." Black Cat continues, "That's because you weren't telling me the truth. You were telling yourself." She continues, "Do you want to see if the hot tub is still functional?" Peter's silent for a moment and then says, "The truth?" Black Cat, "The only currency I accept." And Peter follows it up with, all caps, YES. But, Black Cat continues, "We're not letting Rabbit and Kareem get away. I know. We can still make our couple's massage reservation if we don't dawdle." Spider-Man is questioning, "Is dawdle even a word anymore?" Black Cat continues, "Certainly not when you say it." Spidey says, Felicia, thanks for everything." And she finishes the story with, "The pleasure is all mine, partner." And that's how that story ends. So what did I think about the comic? Well, I honestly enjoyed this one. This one was actually pretty fun. I like how we got to see a more deeper side of the characters here. For example, like Kareem. We got to know more about him and what he thinks about his organization and working with White Rabbit. Of course, he doesn't like his job because of White Rabbit, but we get to see him deal with that situation. There's White Rabbit herself, which we get a little bit more of a deeper understanding of her character in this issue. And there's not much to understand. We basically just get the fact that she's kind of really demented and psychotic, but she's also a pretty fun character because of it. But understanding her character that way also made me question her actual sympathetic sort of situation that she had at the very end with Kareem, when Kareem was finally confessing to her what his thoughts are, both of them working together. But besides that, yeah, it was fun to see her just be psychotic. With Black Cat, though, I noticed there wasn't much about her besides the fact that she was just sort of there being pretty badass. I figured the story, like, yeah, it's centered around Spider-Man and Black Cat's relationship, but it's not really talked about much. This is just Spider-Man just trying to get over MJ, the story, and we have no reason to know more about what's going on with Black Cat, but, like, dog, this is Black Cat and Spider-Man's date. The fuck? Why are we not knowing more about her? Dang, there was too much of a focus on MJ's relationship with Spider-Man instead of, you know, like I keep saying, Black Cat and Spider-Man. And Spider-Man himself. He's a very fun character in this story for sure. He doesn't seem out of place like he has been feeling, or completely unnecessary. He feels like Spider-Man, like what you'd expect Spider-Man to be like. Except, like I mentioned before, when he had that first Spider-Sense tingle, he sort of just ignored it and didn't really bring it up again. Of course, by the second tingle, he started suspecting something. But like, dude, your spider sense has never failed you, and you just ignore it when it goes off the first time? Dog. that's whack. But besides that, Spider-Man himself, yeah, he was a very fun character in this issue. Especially bonding with Kareem. That was pretty fun to see. As for the Tech Bro startup company, the actual antagonists, the villains that they fought in this story, it was made pretty clear that they really didn't impact the story whatsoever. Like, anytime they introduced some sort of like villain 6, they really don't impact the story much. They're just kind of there. And they're mostly used as like a fighting battle arena backdrop as the characters are actually dealing with their own personal relationships as the forefront story. Like I said, it wasn't bad. It was actually a pretty fun issue to read. Anyways, I appreciate you guys for listening to me talk about this Amazing Spider-Man issue. If you enjoyed listening to me talk about the story and you want to hear more The Amazing Spider-Man stories, then make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.